So, at the centre of this thing, you've got the child at the centre, okay, it's self-disciplining, that's what you're trying to encourage. Beside that is you've got fear, the fear. Have a look at that. You're not, I don't really like the fear, I don't really motivate people through fear, but it seems that a lot of people work through fear. And I remember in school being afraid of certain events, like being in front of the other kids. I mean, that is kind of scary. There is something scary about that. So we have to deal with that. We have to have an understanding of that. We have to manage that well. And we have to do it in a way where we don't actually turn it against the kid. The idea is that by the time they become an adult, they have come to terms with what they're afraid of. And they perhaps have overcome the most important fears. Perhaps even the social fear. If we've overcome that, wow. Okay, the other things are, you do explorative projects, rather than just telling kids this, but that's, you know, that comes and goes. So the kids are kind of exploring their understanding, knowledge, and so on and so forth about reality, each other, and sort of social, you know, actual physical realities of physics, biology, chemistry, and sciences, music, and so on and so forth. They're exploring more than just being told. The art of negotiation, you're negotiating between the kids and then the teacher with the kids, they're learning how to do that. Savvy confrontation, you're confronting appropriately as opposed to saying that there is no confrontation, there has to be. The most important thing though, it's this kind of like group at the top here. It's, if you're looking at this thing on the page, hopefully you've got to that. So you're looking at group fission fusion, okay? Group fission fusion means at any one time, okay, you are part of a group. And that means there's cooperation. However, you're doing part of a group, like for example, you're in a team, like 5 or 6, and then there's another team, there's 4 or 5 other teams in the class. It means that there's competition with the other groups, but you are cooperating. So at any point, there is cooperation and competition at the same time. If, however, you want to compete with another class, and you kind of make that clear, then suddenly all the boundaries of groups dissolve, and you are, as a class, competing against another class. And I've done this with kids, and it's fantastic. And then, of course, you can get all the classes together, and you're competing against other age groups, for example. And I haven't been able to do that, because that's fairly large. And eventually what you can do is you can do a whole school thing, where everybody's really pulling for the school against another school. Do you get what I'm saying? Okay, so that group fission fusion is happening all the time, and you're sort of, at what level are we playing? Right? Am I with this little team? Am I with my class? Am I with my DC? Am I with my nation? Am I with the world? Do you get the idea? Okay, 1 to 5 grouping. That's what I was saying. Each kid is effectively relating to another 4, 5, or 6 other kids in a group. Or the teacher is dealing with 4 or 5 other groups. That is a ratio, that's a number that seems to, I can't remember scientifically, something or other they've worked out, that we can't really deal with like 30, 50, 60 concepts. We can only deal with 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, maximum 9. So in the same way we have this with groups. You don't really want to be in a room with anything more than dealing with more than 5 or 6 people. How do you do that if you're 30? Well, if they're in groups, when you get up and you start talking, you're only dealing with the spokespersons of the different other groups. You know what I'm saying? Also, when you're thinking about groups, a lot of teachers don't like this. You don't have to implement it in the sense that they are always working in groups. They can work individually, it's just that they have this notion of teamwork. So if an individual, you're all doing individual work, and an individual does well, instead of saying, oh, fantastic, well, it's fantastic, great, fantastic, but your entire group gets bonuses, gets points, and so on and so forth, even though you're not actually working as a group. Do you see? So you're sitting there working, and then somebody in your own team does really well, and suddenly you get more points. You're like, fantastic over there. You get the idea? And that's not necessarily isolated to a specific class, like maths. That can happen in English or PE. So the kid, and this is the classic way that things collapse, is that the kid, because we're kinesthetic, when we're children, we're all running around learning stuff. And there are some of us that are a bit more abstract than others, and they get to that abstraction a bit earlier. So in first year, you've got all these kids running around, they all want to do a bit of maths, but there's some that have already a little bit ahead in terms of abstraction. And the kid that's kind of physical, likes competing, does that on a physical, football, physical, gets into the maths club, wants to compete, can't. You know, there's this dweeb that's doing well, and he's like, ah. So therefore he hates the kid, he hates the subject, and so on and so forth. You get disaffection. You can't compete. And competition is an important thing. But if he was getting that kind of kudos in his PE, and other subjects perhaps, and then he goes into a math class, and then the dweeb is on his team. So the dweeb's good, happy about being in, the good physical guys in PE, But the big, good physical guy, is happy about being in a maths class with the DWeeb who's on his team. You get the, so you get this kind of notion that we're supporting each other and we are evolving at different rates and paces. And perhaps the guy that's good at physical, he's only going to start doing the conceptual, he's only going to be able to become a little bit more abstract when he's in second year or third year or something, a bit later. That's okay. But during that time, he's not trying to fight, he's going, okay, he's trying to assist the people that are in his class, that are in his group, that are better than him. And we find our place and we help people who are better than us at any time. It builds cooperation, ladies and gentlemen. And then we've got social inclusion. You've got classroom coordinators and ABC classes. Classroom coordinators. A classroom coordinator is somebody effectively that goes from class to class, because this is how we implement it. I think this is over 10 minutes. Damn! It's 15 minutes! Okay, this is part 2. Okay. Okay. Right. How do you implement this? Well, okay, no, one last thing before we move on. 2 things, right? ABC classes. ABC classes. Okay, I do this with kids. What I do is I say, this class, I go in and I treat them like a B class. Okay, a B class means that they've all got self-discipline, but some of them kind of lose it sometimes. And the teacher's job, occasionally when the kid loses self-discipline, kind of corrects it, and the kid goes, oh, carries on. Because kids, they are going to get it wrong. They don't have perfect self-discipline. It's obvious. However, if they respond to that and they come and they don't want that kind of correction, it turns into a C class. Because that means there are too many people that are kind of being disruptive, and the teacher is just kind of, and it's not working. So that's a C class. And an A class, the other side, is when there is no breakdown of self-discipline problems. Which means that if you're talking in front of a bunch of kids, and somebody interrupts and says something, I'm happy about that. If it's an A class, I'm happy about it. Because they're interrupting with something interesting to say. Interesting, informative, or entertaining. Okay? And if it is, then it's good. And then somebody else might say something. And then hopefully it passes back to me if it's self-discipline. Do you see? And we're all passing around our attention well. Okay, and that can happen with it. And an A class means you can be whoever you are. Okay? And you're all kind of supporting each other because you've all got self-discipline. You're all helping each other. Fantastic class, an A class. A B class, as I say, right, a C class means that, okay, the teacher's behaviour depends on what kind of class it is. If it's a C class, you can't go in there having a laugh and joke. You can't do group work and so on and so forth. So don't even try. Okay? Don't even come up with interesting things. Don't put a lot of preparation into your classes. You come in, this is what you have to do, right, get on with it. That's what you do. Because it's a C class. However, if it's an A class, it means you prepare some interesting activities, you do about 3 or 4 during an hour, you keep people entertained, you can trust them to wander about the class, you can get self-organising. It's brilliant, and I've had classes like that, it's fantastic. Now, is it something that the teacher controls? No. The teacher is simply reflecting back to the class. Is it an A, B, or C class? I've had kids come up to, sharpen the pencil, and I'm just asking them, what do you think, your class? Do you think it's an A, B, or C class? And they go, I think it's a B. Yeah, I think it is. Do you see? It's not something which is personal. It's just a reflection of what is happening at an emergent level, i.e. the size of the class. ABC class. Some of my colleagues have liked the idea of trying to introduce it, but they don't introduce it well. They say, like, if you do well, I'll give you an A. No, it's not a teacher that's giving this. This is just the effect. Is it a good class? A. Is it an okay class, but it's a breakdown occasionally, but it's kind of learning? B. And is it on purposely antagonistic? Is it on purposely people are being selfish and people are being loud or kind of controlling and people are required kind of it's a C class. And it requires a certain imposition and discipline. Do you see? Right, okay, we may have to go into part 3.